Talking Trees with Lily and Jad. Welcome to another episode of Talking Trees. This week we're covering a diverse range of topics, starting with pulley systems and mechanical advantage in arboriculture, followed by the design of tree pits in urban environments to support healthy tree growth. We'll examine how plants respond to mechanical stimuli at the cellular level and take a historical look at the worship of trees across different cultures. We'll also highlight the life and contributions of Dr. Alex Shigo, the pioneer of modern arboriculture and the creator of the coated concept. And to round things out, we'll discuss bat conservation in forest ecosystems, the importance of old trees, and sustainable forestry practices. Settle in. This episode is full of insight and inspiration.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This week, we're doing a little something different, a special recap of Talking Trees.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, curated just for our fellow arborists,
Right on.
Yeah, it's been a really packed week, episodes covering everything from how trees respond to wind to the history of tree worship.
Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I think what's really great about this week's lineup is just how practical it is.
Yeah.
Each episode really offers insights that you can apply in your everyday work as an arborist.
Absolutely, whether you're out in the field or planning a project.
Yeah, exactly. So let's kick things off with Monday's episode, which dove straight into the world of rigging.
Okay.
All those complex systems of ropes and pulleys that we use, for tree removals.
Right.
And this episode really had a gem for anyone who's ever,
struggled with a tricky rigging setup.
Oh, yeah.
It turns out you can double your mechanical advantage just by changing how you thread your friction rings.
Now, that's a useful tip.
It is.
Just imagine how much easier that could make, those big removals.
Absolutely.
It's all about working smarter, not harder.
For sure, for sure. And that's what this episode really emphasized,
Yeah.
Understanding the physics behind rigging.
Right.
So you can make informed decisions in the field.
Yeah, and it's about safety too, right? Knowing how to optimize your setup can really prevent accidents.
Absolutely.
And make everyone on the job site safer.
Yeah.
So speaking of safety, Tuesday's episode took us to Stockholm, where they're doing some really innovative things in urban forestry.
Yeah, Stockholm is leading the way when it comes to integrating trees into cities.
Yeah.
Their approach to tree pit design using structural soils is just remarkable.
Yeah, they're essentially creating these custom-built underground spaces for trees to grow,
Right.
even with all the concrete and asphalt.
Yeah, it's like building a tree's dream home, complete with all the amenities.
Yeah, I was really intrigued by their use of biochar in these structural soils.
Oh, yeah, biochar is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
It's this charcoal-like material that's incredibly porous, meaning it can hold a ton of water and nutrients.
So it's good for the trees.
Yeah, great for tree health. But here's the kicker. It also helps improve water quality and sequesters carbon.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's good for the planet, too.
Which aligns perfectly with, our growing focus on sustainability.
Exactly. So it's a win-win-win. Good for the trees, good for the city, good for the planet.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're ready for a little mind-bending science, Wednesday's episode on tree biomechanics is a must-listen.
Oh, yeah.
This one explored how trees sense and respond to mechanical stimuli like wind.
Right.
You might think, well, trees sway in the wind, big deal.
Right.
But the episode really delved into the cellular level, explaining this phenomenon of thigmomorphogenesis.
Okay.
I'll admit that word always throws me off a little bit.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Can you break that down for us a little bit?
Yeah, essentially it's how trees adapt their growth based on external pressures.
Okay.
So if a tree is constantly exposed to strong winds,
Right.
it will actually grow stronger and more resistant to those forces.
Interesting. So it's like they're doing their own weight training,
Right.
but instead of weights, they're battling the wind.
Exactly.
It's amazing how adaptable trees are.
Yeah.
And understanding these processes, that's got to be valuable for us as arborists.
Incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
This knowledge can inform our pruning practices, our tree risk assessments, even our choices of which trees to plant in certain locations.
Makes sense.
If we know how a tree responds to wind, we can prune it in a way that minimizes the risk of damage during a storm.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's all about working with the tree's natural defenses.
Absolutely.
To help it thrive.
Yeah.
Now, Thursday's episode took a bit of a detour from the purely scientific.
Okay.
And explored the world of tree symbolism and mythology.
Interesting.
This episode featured a book called Cultus, Arborum.
Okay.
which delves into the practice of tree worship across different cultures.
Oh, wow.
It was really an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Revealing this deep connection humans have with trees.
Yeah, going beyond just their practical uses.
Yeah, I was really fascinated by how trees have been associated with everything.
Right.
From fertility and abundance to wisdom and spirituality.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that our work as arborists is part of a much larger story.
Absolutely.
That connects us to, the very roots of human civilization.
Really is.
Yeah, and it just underscores the importance of respecting and preserving these ancient symbols.
For sure.
Of life and resilience.
Yeah, well said.
Speaking of pioneers.
Okay.
Friday's episode focused on Dr. Alex Shigo.
Oh, yeah.
A true giant in the field of arboriculture.
Absolutely. Dr. Shido's work revolutionized how we understand tree biology and care.
Yeah, he's best known for his covet concept.
Right, compartmentalization of decay in trees.
Which explains how trees isolate and contain decay within their wood.
It was a groundbreaking discovery that changed the way we approach pruning and tree care.
Yeah, so before Shigo, people thought that decay spread through a tree like a disease.
Exactly.
But his research showed that trees are much more dynamic and resilient than we thought.
For sure. He taught us that trees are constantly working to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And coded is one of their most powerful weapons.
It's like having a secret decoder ring.
Yeah.
That allows us to understand the language of trees.
That's a great way to put it.
And speaking of language, Saturday's episode took us into the world of bat communication and conservation.
Interesting.
Bats may seem a bit removed from our everyday work as arborists.
Right.
But this episode highlighted the crucial role they play in forest ecosystems.
Yeah, they're so important.
It focused on the importance of old trees, diverse forest structures, and overall connectivity for bat populations.
Yeah, those are all key factors.
Well, they even got into how researchers monitor bats.
Oh, cool.
Using techniques like echolocation and radiotelemetry.
Wow, it's like a crash course in bat biology.
It was really cool. It emphasized the interconnectedness of nature.
Yeah.
And reminded us that our work can have, far-reaching impacts beyond just the trees themselves.
Absolutely.
We have a responsibility to consider the entire ecosystem.
For sure.
When we make decisions about tree care and forest management.
Couldn't agree more.
That brings us to the end of our whirlwind tour through this week's Talking Trees episodes.
Wow, what a week.
But hold on.
Okay.
We're not done yet.
What else is there?
We still have a lot more to unpack, including some key takeaways.
Okay.
And thought-provoking questions.
All right.
That will hopefully inspire you to dig a little deeper into these fascinating topics.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Now, before we move on to our final takeaways,
okay,
I wanted to ask you as an expert.
Sure.
What stood out to you the most from this week's episodes?
That's a great question. I think what struck me the most was this recurring theme of balance.
Oh, interesting.
Whether it was the balance of forces and rigging the balance of nature and bat conservation, or the balance of science and tradition in Dr. Shido's work, it was a reminder that our success as arborists depends on our ability to find that sweet spot.
That's a really insightful observation.
Thank you.
And about finding that harmony between human intervention and the natural world.
Absolutely. Okay.
Let's try to distill all this knowledge into some key takeaways that we can take with us into our work as arborists.
Right.
What are some of the big picture lessons that we can glean from this week's episodes?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways for me was the importance of continuous learning.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's staying up to date on the latest research in tree biomechanics or exploring the cultural history of trees, there's always something new to discover.
So true.
And that knowledge can make us better, more informed arborists.
I think that's a great point. It's about staying curious and seeking out new perspectives. And that leads us to our next takeaway, which is the importance of seeing the bigger picture.
Absolutely. Whether we're talking about rigging systems, urban forestry, or bat conservation.
Yeah.
Our actions have ripple effects.
They do.
Throughout the ecosystem, it's crucial to consider those long-term consequences of our decisions.
Right.
And strive to create a balance between human needs and the health of the natural world.
And that balance, as we discussed earlier, is a key theme that's emerged throughout this week's episode.
For sure.
It's about finding that sweet spot where we can work with nature.
Yeah.
Not against it.
Absolutely. And speaking of working with nature, our third takeaway, I think, is the incredible resilience and adaptability of trees.
Yeah.
From their ability to compartmentalize decay to their responses to mechanical stimuli.
Right.
Trees have evolved these amazing strategies.
It's true.
To thrive in even the most challenging environments.
And as arborists, it's our job to understand and respect those adaptations.
Yeah.
It's about working with the tree's natural defenses to promote its health and longevity.
That's it.
Now, before we wrap things up,
okay,
let's leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
All right, how about this? Thinking back to all the topics we've discussed this week, what steps can you take to become a more holistic arborist?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, how can you integrate these insights into your daily practice and contribute to a more sustainable and resilient future for trees?
That's a great question, and one we should all be asking ourselves,
Sure.
It is a challenge to think beyond our immediate tasks.
Yeah.
And consider the broader impact of our work.
But that's what makes arboriculture such a rewarding profession.
It does.
We have the opportunity to make a real difference, not just for individual trees, but for entire ecosystems and communities.
So until next time, keep those chainsaws sharp, those minds curious.
Yeah.
And those hearts connected to the incredible world of trees.
That's a wrap for this episode of Talking Trees. We've explored everything from pulley systems and tree pit design to plant responses, historical perspectives on tree worship, and the lasting impact of Dr. Alex Shigo. We also looked at the vital role of old trees in forest ecosystems and their connection to bat conservation. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with fellow tree enthusiasts. You can also reach out with your thoughts or questions. We always love hearing from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and as always, keep talking trees.